අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 30th of May 2023. Mega projects. Together with policies to secure foreign investments in Sri Lanka, government to resume talks on Japan-funded Colombo Light Rail Transit project that was scrapped unilaterally in 2020. Lifeline. India extends $1 billion credit line offered to Sri Lanka to purchase essential items by a further year. One China. China promises to increase investment in Sri Lanka and assures to always stand by Sri Lanka's sovereignty while supporting the debt restructuring process. Infrastructure development. Sri Lanka ambitious to resume road development projects halted as an IMF prerequisite for bailout after debt talks in September.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuwata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. We take you straight to your top story making headlines tonight. The Cabinet of Ministers has given its approval to resume discussions on the Japan-funded Colombo Light Rail Transit project, which Sri Lanka terminated unilaterally in 2020. Speaking at the Cabinet media briefing this morning, Cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the decision to resume talks on the project was taken prior to President Ranil Wickremesinghe's official visit to Japan last week. The Cabinet earlier also approved a proposal that agreements for investment projects with foreign assistance should be tabled in Parliament, and the termination of such agreements, where necessary, can only be done with parliamentary approval.
The Colombo Light Rail Transit project was initiated in 2017 during the government of President Maithripala Sirisena and then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, with the objective of reducing traffic congestion within Colombo city and to provide passengers with affordable and convenient means of public transportation. As per the proposed LRT service could complete the journey from Mala Bay to Colombo Fort within 30 minutes during peak hours and operate a train every 10 minutes during off-peak hours. The project was estimated at $2.2 billion. In March 2019, Sri Lanka entered into an agreement with the Japan International Cooperation Agency for a Japanese soft loan at an interest rate of just 0.1%, repayable over 40 years and with a grace period of 12 years. However, in September 2022, the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa unilaterally cancelled the project, citing the project was not an appropriate cost-effective transport solution. According to a report compiled by the National Audit Office, Sri Lanka lost nearly 6 billion rupees due to the unilateral cancellation of the LRT project with Japan. The cancellation of the project severely impacted relations with Japan, a country that had been a major source of financial and technological assistance to Sri Lanka. Just last week, embarking on a visit to Japan, President Ranil Wickremesinghe apologized to the Japanese government over the unilateral termination of the Colombo Light Rail Transit project. Meanwhile, speaking at the weekly Cabinet media briefing this morning, Cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandula Gunawardena stated that the President sought Cabinet approval to resume discussions on the LRT project prior to his official visit to Japan in a bid to restore Sri Lanka's credibility with the international community. Meanwhile, speaking at the weekly cabinet media briefing this morning, cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandula Gunawardena stated that the president sought cabinet approval to resume discussions on the LRT project in a bid to restore Sri Lanka's credibility with the international community.
පසුගිය කාල පරිච්ඡේදය තුළදී ජපානයේ ප්‍රධාන ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට ආධාර සපයන රට බවට පත් වෙලා තිබුණා. ඒත් මෑත ඉතිහාසය තුළදී ඇතැම් යෝජනා ආධාර ව්‍යාපෘති ශනිකව නතර කිරීම නිසා සමහර කනස්සලු ස්වභාවයක් පැවතීම නිවැරදි කිරීම සඳහා ජනාධිපතිතුමා අවශ්‍ය පසුතලය සකස් කරගෙන තමයි ජපානයේ සංචාරය නිරත වුණේ. එහිදී එතුමා ජපානයේ සංචාරයට පිටත්ව යාමට කලින් සෑල්ලු දුම්රිය ව්‍යාපෘතිය නවතා දෙමු දුම්රිය ව්‍යාපෘතිය යලි සාකච්ඡා කිරීම සඳහා අනුමැතිය ලබාගත් කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය. ඒ වගේම එතුමා ජපාන සංචාරයට කලින් කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයෙන් අනුමැතිය ලබාගත්තා දෙරාජ්‍යයක් අතර යම්කිසි ගිවිසුමක් අත්සන් කළොත් ආධාර හා වෙනත් ආයෝජන ව්‍යාපෘතියක් කළොත් ඒ ව්‍යාපෘතිය පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නත් ඊට පසුව යම් ආකාරයකින් මේ ව්‍යාපෘතියක් නතර කරනවා හරි වෙනස් කරනවා හරි කරනවා නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අනුමැතියෙන් තොරව කරන්න බැරි වෙන්නත් අවශ්‍ය විශ්වසනීය භාවයේ පිළිබඳ සහතිකයක් සකස් කරගෙන තමයි එතුමා ජපානයේ සංචාරයේ නිරත වුණේ.
Minister of Transport and Highways Dr. Bandula Gunawardena meanwhile expressed hope that the government will be able to resume all road development projects following the conclusion of debt restructuring talks in September this year. The minister said that road development projects were halted due to the debt default announcement last year.
පසුගිය දිනවල කතාබහට ලක්ුණා මේ අපේ මාර්ග සංවර්ධනයෙන් රජ ඉවත් වෙනවා කියලා. මේ කතාව සත්‍යද?
ගැටබේ සහ කොව්වල ගුවන් පාලම් දෙක බල්ගේරියන් ආධාර යටතේ තමයි ඉදිවෙමින් පැවතුනේ. කොව්වල ගුවන් පාලමේ වැඩ කටයුතු වලින් 95ක් පමණ නිම වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒත් අපි විදේශ රාජ්‍යයන්ට ගෙවිය යුතු ණය ගෙවිය නොහැකි බව ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කිරීමත් සමග සියලුම විදේශ ණය ආධාර ලැබෙන ව්‍යාපෘති එක්වරම එම රටවල් විසින් නතර කරනු ලැබ තිබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා ගැටබේ සහ කොව්වල ගුවන් පාලමට මුදල් නිකුත් කිරීමත් ඒ අනුව සම්පූර්ණයෙන් නතර වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට මධ්‍යම අධිවේගී මාර්ගයට එහෙම මුදල් එක්සිම් බැංක් එකෙන් චීනයේ ලැබීම නතර වෙලා තියෙනවා. හයි රෝඩ් ව්‍යාපෘතිය සහ ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුවේ ව්‍යාපෘති සඳහා මුදල් ලැබීම නතර වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා අපි ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුවේ නියෝජිතයන් පවා මේ අතරමඟ අම්මාවත් හා අනික් ඉදිකිරීම නතර වෙලා තිබීමෙන් ඇති වෙලා තියෙන අහිතකර ප්‍රතිඵල නලා දීලා තිබෙනවා. මේ ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගතකරණය කරගන්නත් එක් මේ මම්මාවත් වල ගමන් කරන්න පුළුවන් තත්ත්වය ඇති කිරීම සඳහා ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 53ක් ලබා දීම සඳහා එකඟතාවය ඇති කරලා තිබෙනවා. සැප්තැම්බර් මාසයේ වන විට ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කරන වැඩසටහන සාර්ථක වී නතර වෙලා තිබෙන සියලු සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘති ආරම්භ කරන්න අපිට පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙනවා.
Well, India extended until March next year the $1 billion credit line it offered Sri Lanka last year to import essential items amid the economic crisis. State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe said the remaining $423,025 million of the credit line will be prioritized to import medicine to the island.
India extended the $1 billion credit line offered to Sri Lanka during the crisis hit period last year to purchase essential items up until March next year. The agreement of extension was signed today between officials of the State Bank of India and the Ministry of Finance. According to State Minister for Finance Shehan Semasinghe, the Sri Lankan government imported materials worth $576.75 million from the $1 billion credit line that was approved in March last year. He noted that the agreement was extended until March 2024 for the remaining $423.25 million. According to the State Minister of Finance, government plans to prioritize imports of essential medicines utilizing the remaining $423.25 million of the Indian credit line during the period until March next year.
Now visiting Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs Sung Weidong stated that China will always stand by Sri Lanka's sovereignty as well as for the political independence and socio-economic development of the country. During a discussion with Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena today, the Chinese minister further assured that China will continue to provide economic assistance as well as support towards Sri Lanka's debt restructuring program.
Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, Sun Weidong, who is currently leading a delegation of the Chinese Foreign Ministry to Sri Lanka, today called on Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena at the Temple Trees. During the discussion, the Chinese Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs mentioned that China will always stand by Sri Lanka's sovereignty as well as for political independence and socio-economic development. According to a statement issued by the Prime Minister's office, the Vice Minister had also assured that China will increase investments in several areas in Sri Lanka, such as agriculture, trade, commerce, ports and infrastructure development. Chinese Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs has also assured China's continued economic assistance as well as support to Sri Lanka's debt restructuring program. The Chinese Vice Minister has expressed deep appreciation to Sri Lanka's adherence to One China policy despite pressures from several quarters, while highlighting that China has taken steps to establish a strong cooperation with Sri Lankan Buddhist associations to further enhance religious ties.
Also in local news today, the fuel quota granted to vehicles under the National Fuel Pass QR system will be increased from midnight tonight as per a recent decision taken by the government. On Sunday, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara noted that the current 30-litre weekly fuel quota for cars and vans will be increased to 40 litres a week starting tomorrow. The quota for buses will be increased to 125 litres from the current allocation of 60 litres a week. Lorries will also be granted 125 litres from its current entitlement of 75 litres a week. Motorbikes in the meantime and three-wheelers that fall under the general category will see their quota double to 14 litres. The quota for special purpose vehicles will be increased to 45 litres, while three-wheelers that fall under the special category will be entitled to 22 litres a week and quadricycles 14 litres a week from midnight tonight. And we'll take a short commercial break. We'll come back to talk about high-risk dengue affected areas in Sri Lanka after this.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි. ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
And we take you to more local news tonight. Director of the National Dengue Control Unit, Dr. Nalin Aryaratna, calls on the general public to support the dengue prevention program in their respective residences. In their latest statistics, the National Dengue Control Unit showed that 8,931 cases of dengue have been reported during the past 30 days, while 25 dengue-related deaths have been reported so far this year.
According to the Epidemiology Unit of the Ministry of Health, 38,639 cases related to dengue have been recorded across the island so far during the year. During the past 30 days, 8,931 dengue cases have been reported. According to the National Dengue Prevention Unit, over 50% of the cases were reported from the Western Province, totaling 19,174. Gampa is the highest affected district and the number of cases reported are 8,630. Meanwhile, from the Colombo district, 8,142 cases have been reported during the year. The National Dengue Control Unit said 61 areas have been identified as high-risk areas. The unit also said that 25 dengue-related deaths have occurred so far this year.
Now we basically observe many other districts other than the Colombo, Gampa, Kalutara that are also reporting high number of cases. Trincomalee, Batiklo, Putlam, and in addition to that, Kurunagala, Kandy and Kegol are some other districts that are reporting high numbers. We have labeled 61 MOH divisions as very high risk areas. So we basically advise the people who are living in these areas to adopt into the cleanup programs. Basically, the presidential task force now activated and strengthened through additional divisional secretariats, and the MOHs and PHIs are all involved with in the capacity of technical advisors and all. So basically, we advise all these people to adhere into the cleanup programs and preventive activities. And other than that, the areas which we have identified as newly high risk areas, we basically advise them to strengthen the program and make sure that every week you need to engage with cleanup programs, because the sustainability is what matters when it comes to the prevention of dengue.
And taking you to business news, direct flights from the Turkish capital Istanbul to Sri Lanka's Bandaranaike International Airport in Katonaike came under discussion with the aim of commencing flight operations from August this year. Turkish Ambassador Demet Şekeroğlu today held discussions with Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva to seek authorization to commence direct flights to Colombo, providing convenience for Turkish tourists and travelers who visit Sri Lanka. Currently, the Turkish Airlines connects with Sri Lanka through a route that includes a stopover in the Maldives, resulting in additional travel time of 1.5 hours. Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva, meanwhile, is to forward the request to the Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority and the Airport and Aviation Services Limited.
I have already taken action.
Oh, thank you very much. So, discovering Sri Lanka.
State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinga says that the Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kenji Okumura, will arrive in Sri Lanka tomorrow for a two-day official visit. During his visit to the island nation, Okumura is expected to hold several rounds of discussions on the recent changes in Sri Lanka's economic stability and the opportunities to empower the economy in the future. The discussions will also focus on the methods to minimize obstacles and delays hampering economic recovery in Sri Lanka. The IMF Deputy Managing Director's visit comes days after the IMF staff team's visit to Sri Lanka, which was part of the regular consultations between the global lender and Sri Lanka ahead of the first review mission later in 2023 for the IMF bailout package extended to Sri Lanka. Well, Sri Lankan shares closed lower today, dragged by losses in consumer staples, stocks and local LOLC finance. The all-share price index settled down at 8,532.60, 0.5% lower, falling for 4 straight sessions. Financial services provider LOLC Finance PLC and Ceylon Tobacco Company were the top losers on the CSE, falling 2.08% and 1.75% respectively. Trading volume on the CSE all-share price index fell to 32.9 million shares from 33.3 million in the previous session. Market turnover rose to 575.3 million or 1.96 million US dollars from 518.9 million rupees in the previous session. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 145.1 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, offloading shares worth 542.3 million rupees. And here's a look at the day's foreign currency rates compared to Sri Lanka's rupee. And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9 on AdaDerana 24. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. I'm Derana English. Good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.